Welcome in, one and all, to the newest episode of the Hoth Hangout podcast. I am joined by the wonderful Joey. How are you
Hello.
doing, man?
Doing well, doing well. Yeah, we had a fun week of Star Wars. We had a Mando trailer. We got a Bad Batch episode. Yeah, I'm doing real well. I got a new Bad Batch shirt for $10. It was on sale, so I'm like, oh, I gotta pick that up for the pod. And we're gonna expense this all anyway, right, Ben? So we should try, right?
Yeah. It's that tax deductible, right? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I gotta pick up one of those T-shirts that like we can match for the next Bad
Yeah.
Batch episode or something.
Nice.
Well, not to hop right into things, but I guess before we do that, thank you again for everyone who has subscribed to the Hoth Hangout podcast, whether on Apple, Spotify, or over on the YouTube channel. And if you haven't yet checked out our reaction, not really in terms of Bad Batch, but more so related to The Mandalorian, we posted on the YouTube Hoth Hangout channel a reaction to the brand new Mandalorian Season 3 trailer. So if you haven't checked that out, go give it a watch after listening to the podcast, and let us know what you think of the new season of Mandalorian. I know we're super excited for it. I can't wait until that comes out. We're I think officially less than 6 weeks now
Oh
until
my God, it's
until
so
premiere.
soon. Yeah, I'm just waiting for that scene with all the Jedi. Looks like we getting another angle of Order 66 again, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah. These next 6 weeks are interesting because I'm not excited for the Bad Batch, but like when you're kind of into a show like we are with Bad Batch right now, we're now 4 episodes deep into season 2. Um, it kind of I don't know, when you get this trailer for Mandalorian, which obviously, especially with a mainstream audience, but even amongst big Star Wars fans like we would consider ourselves to be, I think most people would say they're generally just way more excited for Mandalorian than they are. Not that Bad Batch is bad, but comparatively, I think most, including myself, I don't know about you. I don't want to speak for you, but I'm definitely more excited for Mando. So I feel like these next 6 weeks are just like so excited. We're getting new content with Bad Batch. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's like, oh, I can't wait for Mandalorian.
I wasn't on Twitter much the past couple of days, but I got to imagine there's the meme of the guy and the two girls. The one he's like looking away while
Bad
he's holding
Batch,
the hand. Yeah, so he's
Mandalorian.
holding the hand of Bad Batch and he's looking back in Mandalorian. So for sure, and then that's basically every single one of us.
Yeah.
Sorry, Omega, that's just how it goes.
Hey, if that meme with those exact words don't exist yet, let's make sure we get that up
That's
over
right.
on the Hoth Hangout Twitter.
That's right.
Which, by the way, if you're not following us over on Twitter, you definitely check that out. And if you ever want to shoot us a message or question or whatnot, tweet at us at Hoth Hangout or email us hothhangout@gmail.com. All right. So speaking of Bad Batch and kind of shifting from our excitement from Mandalorian over to the episode at hand this week, it was season 2, episode 4. And I feel like I distinctly remember the name of the episode coming on. I was like, oh, I need to mention that. And now it's just like out of my brain. Faster was the name of the episode. Which was ironic to me because I get it, because clearly this is, so if you haven't seen the episode yet, just a very brief synopsis. Imagine Phantom Menace, the pod racer scene, but just like redone in an animated style with like kind of a few differences. At least to me, that's what it felt like. Was like, how can we take the pod racing scene from Phantom Menace and put this into Bad Batch? Is what it felt like. And so I don't know. With that, I have a lot of thoughts on this episode. By the way, not necessarily too many positive thoughts, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on it, but kind of going back to last week's episode, I think there was a fear that we were going to sort of have this swapping, alternating storyline where it's like, okay, we're with the Bad Batch this episode. Now we're kind of looking at Crosshair and Cody this episode, kind of moving back and forth between the way differing groups or differing people are kind of moving forward with the state of things post Order 66 and the growing empire. So without giving too many of my thoughts away on the episode, How did you feel about it? I'm really curious. I haven't read anything on
I haven't
people's
either.
thoughts on this, by the way, so
Yeah, and
far.
and I have I have exactly one thought about this this episode is that I cannot believe this is the same show as the episode we
As the
saw
last
last
episode.
week.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
These are
crazy.
two very different shows. It feels like, you know.
Mhm.
I can't believe that these exist in the same in the same close universe here. You know, with the Bad Batch and what they're doing,
Yeah.
and with Crosshair, and it's unfortunate. We saw how great this show could be last week, and you know how it could really pull you into a lot of the Clone Wars lore, you know, with all of the, you know, you see Cody back again, you see all of the clones kind of doing their thing, and it's developing this story about how all the clones are starting to really, you know, starting to realize that they may be on the wrong side of history here,
Mm.
and what they need to do. You know, they have their minds of their own apparently, and they're able to make these change defect and go AWOL and everything like this. So something you would have never assumed would ever happen when you were in right in the deep of Clone Wars, you know. So you get this very rich, full storyline or last week, and then you come to this week, and
Yeah.
so I saw the title of the episode, and then I also read the description. I'm like, this is not going to go well, you know,
Yes.
in comparison to what we saw last week, and I gotta say it was a letdown. You know, I really, you know, we talked about how we don't want this to be like, okay, you've got another mission. Now go off and do that mission. And we didn't even get the full Bad Batch crew
Yeah.
because they were on the mission.
I was
So I
gonna
mean,
say
you
it
know,
was even worse than what we thought it was gonna. You know, it was like, oh my, they're not even all here.
yeah. And what were they collecting chicken McNuggets? I forget what they were even getting. You know, just
It
something
was.
ridiculous.
I mean,
You know,
it made no sense. It was. I mean, okay, it did not make sense, but it was like, okay, Hunter and Echo are off on this other mission. Yeah, what did they call it? Something.
it was something about nuggies.
Nerf, Nerf. They
Nerf nuggets.
Nerf nuggets or something. And I'm like, what? And then not only do they have a mission, which they have to do, it's basically just like covering Sid's butt is the whole episode. And it's like, basically my thinking is, by the way, this is I think I feel comfortable saying this is my least favorite episode of The Bad Batch in season 1 or season 2. Because, I mean, you take this episode away, and what do you lose from the overall story? Nothing, I don't think. I mean, the only thing you could debate is the very end when the villain of this episode, like Malegi, I think was his name. Which, by the way, I feel like I recognized that actor's voice, and the whole time I was like, "Who is
I
this?
think it's if I read it right, I think it's Ernie Hudson,
Who
who was
plays what?"
Winston Zedmore from Ghostbusters.
Oh, okay,
I think that's who that is.
yeah.
From if I read the right character name, I'm pretty sure that's who that
Has
is.
such a like recognizable, distinct voice. I
Yes,
was like,
very
I know
distinct.
I've heard this somewhere. But all that to say, I feel like the only thing you could argue that matters for the overall story in this episode is at the very like the last 10 seconds of the episode, the very end, when he says, you know, it's an admirable thing you guys did, but it doesn't really go two ways with Sid. Just watch your backs. And you're like, okay, like we already knew Sid probably wasn't the most trustworthy person.
Yeah,
So
right.
you know, all that to say, maybe it foreshadows that Sid might betray them in the future of the show, but I just didn't care for the episode. Nothing in the grand scheme of the story seemed pertinent, or in this episode seemed pertinent to the grand scheme of things. And again, it just felt like they watched Phantom Menace and were like, wouldn't it be cool if we just kind of like, you know, redid this as part of the Bad Batch? Although
Mhm.
maybe even not as good as as crazy as that is to say, maybe even not as good as
Yeah,
the Phantom Menace.
right.
Um, I had almost no notes on this episode. I wrote 4 things. One of them I've already mentioned. Malegi was the bad guy's name, which kind of turned out to be like an honorable bad guy in a way because he honors the agreement of
Yeah,
the
right.
bet. So I was like, okay. Sagatoma is the name of the place where this is all happening. Teo, we haven't talked about Teo yet.
Right.
My opinion, the most annoying character since Jar Jar Binks. To add to the dumpster fire not dumpster fire, that's a little bit aggressive, but to add to the amount that I didn't really care for this episode. And then the last thing I wrote was, did anyone else see C-3PO driving that pod?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Those are my only notes on the episode. Like, nothing about the story, nothing about, we don't even know where Hunter is. We have no clue where Echo is.
Yeah.
What the heck is Crosshair doing? We probably won't find out for 2 more episodes. If we get the Hunter Echo mission during the next episode, I'm like, please, Dave Filoni. Anyways, sorry, not to bag too much on the episode. I
mean, we are consumers of the product. This is something that we enjoy to talk about, to watch, and we only want the best for it.
Yeah.
But in order to get that, sometimes you have to see the bad side of it, and you have to complain about it, and you have to, so I feel that this is one of those moments, and I fully agree that as far as the entire timeline of Bad Batch, this is the worst filler episode that I've seen. Maybe of all of Star Wars TV. I'm not quite sure, but maybe that should be one of our next videos. Is the worst episodes of.
That would actually be kind of an interesting one. I don't know off the top of my. I mean, I would throw a couple of the Visions things in there that I wasn't. The non lightsaber Visions episodes.
Yeah, I think I know you haven't seen it, but I'm sure a couple of Resistance episodes would definitely fall.
Yeah, I gotta try to rewatch that at some point. I got like 2 episodes in. I was like, this isn't for me.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
But if you're listening or watching this, and if you've seen Star Wars Resistance, let me know if I should give it another chance. Joey, you've seen it all, haven't you?
I have seen both seasons of it, yes.
And how would you say it's your and it's okay. Would you say it's your least favorite Star Wars show?
Yeah, I would say so, unfortunately. I mean, I'd have to give it another rewatch for sure. Just to kind of solidify, maybe put that last nail in that coffin. But unfortunately, and it wasn't. Part of me thinks it wasn't targeted for me or for us. It was definitely a younger feel. So maybe that's unfair for me to even say that. But yeah, it definitely for me it didn't necessarily give me the Star Wars feels that I want. There were some very cool parts. The animation's beautiful. They do have some good points in it. I do like the actors in it. But as far as the storyline and just the kind of the lead and all that, Kaz, he's kind of just overall goofy, So it's just like how much of the and we have these leads that kind of fit that role sometimes. I'm talking about like an Ezra Bridger, where you're just like, God, this kid's annoying. But eventually you kind of get on their side. I don't think Resistance had enough time to maybe even get there with his character, or maybe they didn't write it right, correctly to do it, as fast as they should have. But I mean, I would give it another watch. I mean, I think there are probably some things that I missed in that series that I probably just completely forgot because I was just like, this isn't really for me, and I kind of forced myself to get through each episode of that series. But like I said, not everything is going to be a home run. Not everything is going to be Clone Wars. Not everything is going to be episode 9 for you. You know what I mean? Like it just not, so unfortunately it didn't hit the mark for me this week on the Bad Batch episode.
You're gonna have people out here thinking that I actually love that episode.
That's the point.
Speaking of Star Wars media that is more geared towards a younger audience, have you heard anything about? I feel like this by the way, this podcast episode is kind of funny because our thoughts on the episode are pretty like succinct and not super positive. So I think there's like some other things that we're also interested in talking about. Have you heard anything about that Star Wars Young Jedi Adventure show?
No, I don't think I have at all.
Which my understanding, it takes place in the High Republic era, which is kind of cool. But my understanding is like it is even more of a kid's show than Resistance is. So I'm thinking like, did you ever watch Little Einsteins or ever seen that show? my thinking of what it's gonna be like is like the Star Wars version of Little Einsteins.
Yeah. Or
So
Muppet Babies.
yeah, exactly. So like, will I watch it? I might watch an episode just to see kind of what it's about. Will I, if I one day have kids, show them that? Absolutely. So again, that's
Right.
kind of like the thing where it's like incorporating all ages
Right.
into this Star
And here's
Wars
the thing,
universe.
I'm never gonna knock anybody for liking something I don't.
Sure, yeah.
That's yeah, and that's there are people out there that might, but I don't think you and I are the kinds of people that would ever, make fun of somebody for liking that something. If somebody came out and said, "This was the best episode of Bad Batch I've ever seen," I would raise an eyebrow, but I'm like, "Okay, well, good on you." That's if you enjoy it, then all to you.
Yeah. Now this is pod racing.
If they should have said something
If they
like
would have
very
thrown
similar,
that in there, I would have died. I would have given
I
the
would,
episode gets an extra point if they would have used the phrase,
right.
now this is pod racing.
Yeah, because what was it called? It was called Riot Racing, right? So,
Yeah, they even like had a
and
different
yeah,
name for it. I mean, it
yeah,
was basically pod racing, let's be honest.
yeah, yeah. Now this is Riot Racing.
Yeah. So moving forward and looking forward at the rest of season 2 of the Bad Batch, 16 episodes, right? 16 episodes total, and we know we're gonna get it's episodes 7 and 8, right? That are the
Yeah.
back-to-back
So we're
episodes.
we're a quarter in now.
Right.
To the
So
season.
next week on the 24th, we'll get um the 5th episode. The 31st, we'll get the 6th, and then on what would that be? The 6th, we'll get the 7th and 8th combined. I gotta say, these next 4 episodes, that's a lot of weight on the back of these 4 episodes. Because I mean, up until this point, we've had a little bit of story developing in terms of kind of the greater, ideology with the clones and how that fits into serving the Empire, or should they, rebel, as we've kind of seen Cody do now. So I want to like explore that, and I want to delve more into that. I want them to go that direction. And every episode we get, like today's or yesterday's episode, is just kind of like, man, that was a little bit of a letdown. Again,
Right.
it's not bad. We love Star Wars. We'll always take more Star Wars. But at the same time, you're like, that didn't move the story anywhere. And so that to me, it's not that the episode was bad. I think I should probably recant a little bit of what I said earlier. It's just that it didn't push the story anywhere. And that to me is what's most frustrating, not just with Star Wars, but any show you love. When you care about a show, when you love a show, and it's a weekly premiere thing where you're only getting an episode every 7 days, and you get an episode where at the end of it nothing has changed in the grand scheme of things compared to at the end of last week's episode, you're like, well, why am I getting excited for waiting 7 days for this if they're not going to progress things or the story's not going to move anywhere? So that's kind of where my head is at. And then looking forward, I don't want any more episodes where it's like doing this mission, and especially I don't want any episodes where it's like we don't even get the whole crew.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that was the other thing I was going to pose about this episode to you is, what do you think the point is of not having Hunter and not having Echo in this episode?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could think of is almost what you said is we have to find out at some point what that was about, or the reasoning behind it. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily, go see them order chicken nuggets at McDonald's or wherever it was. Um, but and also I think it also shows to maybe a little bit of how Sid is using them. I mean, these are very trivial, easier things that could be, according to what Tech was saying. That was a pretty easy mission on what those two went on. So obviously they don't need the whole crew for it. So it's just like Sid is just like, all right, well, I have all 5 of you. I don't need all 5 of you in this one. I'll throw you some this way. So maybe it speaks more onto how she values that team.
Hmm.
Because it seems like she maybe has other teams out there doing these types of things. But and maybe now she's just like, well, now they're just people filling these roles and whatever. It doesn't matter what kind of military experience you have and whatever this is. I don't care about that. I just need this done. which downgrades their value really.
Yeah.
This is the Bad Batch. This is the crew that can do all. But you're sending them on these trivial missions, and they're not being utilized to their full potential. So I think if anything from that, I think that's why, maybe that's why we had this split here. Am I going too deep into this? Maybe, but that's the only straw I can grasp at, because otherwise you would always want to keep this group together. And maybe it's, and I hate to say it, but maybe it's like they didn't have enough writing for everyone, because it's 5 characters. That's quite a bit of people to have to continually
I think that might be
think
what it
about.
is. Yeah.
Right, so you have to continually think about the mindset of these set of characters every single episode, whereas like the Crosshair episodes, it's like one. So
Yeah.
you could dive deep into that. So there's a lot, because when you have all, is it 5? Do they have 5 of them on the Bad Batch there?
Well, including Omega.
Yeah,
Are you
including Omega, right?
current Bad Batch members? Yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah. So, they even in themselves, within a mission, they'll split up and do, one will do one set of things, one will do another set. So, maybe it's just they're just showing how expendable Sid is now making them, and I don't know if that's going to lead to something later on with, now we know Sid is going, is supposedly, two-faced, although we kind of already knew that. But one thing I'm hoping to happen is we're seeing the overall clone army starting to shy away from the Empire. Hopefully, at some point, they meet up with the remaining members of Bad Batch, and hopefully, maybe they create something together. So that's kind of what I'm hoping. We see a Cody with them. Rex comes back into play, because that makes for more of an interesting story as
Yeah.
opposed to just having these video game side missions every other episode. Because what's going to happen is we're going to be waiting for every other episode now. We're going to be waiting for these Crosshair episodes and not these Bad Batch episodes. And that's not what I want. I want to be able to have a full experience with everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like you said, I think the Cody, Rex, Crosshair, whole Bad Batch coming together, I think that is the destination we're headed. I'd be surprised if it wasn't in this season, at least. But I just, the path there, I think, could be made so much more interesting and so much more meaningful. For example, the splitting in this episode. While I don't love the fact that they would split the Bad Batch, I think it's something you can use as a storytelling device to prop up or emphasize a certain character's development who maybe has not been in the limelight this season. So, like, if this episode would have been like how Omega goes through something in the process of being on, whatever this place is called. Let me just look back at my 4 notes here. Sagatoma. Like, if while they're on Sagatoma, Omega has some sort of like realization or character growth, or she specifically does or accomplishes something that impacts the character in a way where she is now grown as a character, moving into the future of the show. Great, split the characters so that we can focus more individually on the characters at hand. But like, they didn't even do that. It was like, I mean, you could argue tech, but like, how does this character really have character growth? He's just kind of the one that gets them out of a bind in the episode. There's nothing that he really learns about himself per se. So other than I guess he can pod race or whatever it's called. So
Right.
yeah, again, like, I'm not opposed to the splitting, but like, do something with the characters who you're focusing
Right.
on if you're going to split them up instead of just making a Phantom Menace remake.
Right.
Sorry, not to keep bagging on the episode. I apologize.
And it's hard to have these thoughts. I go into every episode just like hoping, this is gonna be fun, this is gonna be good, we're gonna learn something. But when as each minute ticks by and you're like, this isn't this isn't gonna go where I want it to go, and you just keep grasping, you keep hoping. But then by the end of it, you're just like, nope, that's exactly That's exactly what I thought was going to happen when I read the title and the description of this episode.
Yeah, which is ironic. Oh, that was back to my very first point I made. I didn't even finish it when we started the pod. I said it's ironic that the episode was called Faster because the whole time I was just like what felt like I was having a snooze fest. Like it didn't really go anywhere. Not that it was necessarily a slow episode because of course the episodes are only 22 minutes long. It's just like it didn't feel fast paced, I guess.
And I wonder, these series that have 16 episodes, that's a good size season, And I wonder if that is the problem. When you have so many episodes, if you don't have a story, if their story doesn't fill each episode, then you're going to have these filler episodes, So I think of things like Mandalorian that only has 8. What did Obi-Wan have, 6 or something like that? So
Yeah, I think it was shorter.
so you have, it's okay to have these shorter seasons if you do have, a storyline that can fulfill each of those episodes, or or plot points that can go to each of those episodes. And I think 16 just might be too much. Maybe 10. I'd give 10 at most. Because I feel like there's probably a good, 20-25% of the season hopefully, because I mean, in all honesty, the first 2 episodes probably could have just been one episode. The way that went, so that so really you already have 2 kind of filler episodes in the 4 that we've seen. So I think that maybe these seasons just are going on too long. I mean, I get it, you want to keep your audience for as long as you can. But when you have, and this is something that is kind of worries me, and I want to speak on it, is that they're releasing Mandalorian right in the middle of the season, which is kind of, I don't know if that's the first time. I'd have to look at all the releases of all the other ones, but to have 2 Star Wars shows at the same time like this, kind of makes me worried about the second half of Bad Batch, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, like Mandalorian is what they care most about by far. And so, I don't think in the grand scheme of things they're going to be like, well, we should probably delay Mandalorian another 8 weeks so that we can be sure we focus on getting people to watch Bad Batch. Because in the grand scheme of things, they're gonna release Mandalorian whenever their analytics people say it's the best for market results or whatever. So I don't know if it's too much to look into, but it definitely is like something to think about. Like, it's clear that Bad Batch is not the priority, and that's not.
And it shouldn't be. I mean, and it shouldn't
right,
be. Yeah.
Right. To be fair, you're exactly right, and it just it's a little disappointing when you're watching a show that's supposed to be like in a way, not nearly as good, but like almost the second coming of Clone Wars.
Yeah, right.
And so it's like, okay, like I can get with this. And then, the episode slowly starts to get like, okay. And then, is the second half of this season going to be super forgettable and we're just going to be talking about Mando the whole time? There's a good chance that might happen. I hope we're talking about both as being amazing. I imagine we'll probably be talking about Mando as being amazing. But like you said, fingers crossed. They can't screw up Mando.
I know.
I'm
just saying, if their 2-minute trailer was better than the 24 minutes of Bad Batch, I'm just kidding. I won't go into it.
Yeah,
I'm totally banging on him now.
My hope
it's
levels.
It's fine.
My hope levels for Mando are at like not to put them too high, a 9.9 out of 10. Whereas my hope levels for Bad Batch, I'm like maybe a 4. So
yeah.
I love both of them, just in different ways, and I'm looking forward to watching the rest of both of them, no matter the episode quality. But speaking on that means next week, if the trend continues, we should get a more interesting, higher quality Bad Batch episode. So let's hope that's the case.
Yeah, we could only read the analytics, and that's where we're headed.
Yeah. Well, I guess to wrap us up, what would you give the episode as a letter grade?
Oh, do we have to? I feel bad.
Do you want me to go first? Because
you go first.
I have mine locked in.
All right, let's see.
And I debated on 2 different grades on how mean I should be. And I just I feel bad because the whole episode I was like, in my head I was like, why do I care about this? Like, what does this do for me? And I debated between a C minus and a D plus, and I think I'm gonna go with a D plus. I don't want to influence your letter grade too much,
No, that's fine.
but I got to be pretty strict with this one just because the whole time I just found myself not really caring for it. So I feel bad. Not to say I hated it, but it just didn't do anything for me. So D plus for me.
Okay, so I'll set the scene here a bit. So, um, last night my daughter woke up like super early, like she
Hmm.
does. We've talked about this before,
Yep.
and she woke up super early. So I was already up around 4 or 5 in the morning. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna watch Bad Batch. I'm holding her. We're watching it. And normally with anything Star Wars, I'm cool. I'm watching it, whatever. I fell asleep. I fell asleep knowing that we were going to be we're talking about this tonight. I knew I was going to watch it again later during the day when I was a little bit more awake and all that. Um, but I fell asleep during the racing part. So I woke up and the end screen was there. It actually already had moved on to Andor. And and so so
You're like,
based
how did
off
they get in this prison, and why are they not animated anymore?
like this is very confusing and
Yeah.
so to give some indication on how I felt early on, that's what it was. So given that, now after watching it again, it's had the Star Wars elements. Obviously it kind of copied off of Phantom Menace and the pod racing, and let's be honest, Star Wars does that. We do have a lot
Yeah,
of
sure.
parallels. I think even there's a meme about George Lucas saying something about them being parallel. um so I'm gonna go with your grade as well with a D plus. I I was kind of set on that pretty early on because it was just for D plus for Disney Plus. How about that? We could make a
Oh, that's our logic. I like it.
positive spin on it. But you have to be very specific on your criteria in order to hit that. So if you fall asleep on it, maybe that's one of the things. But yeah. So like you said, like everything that we've said, there's no movement of the story. There's no development of characters. Um, is it a fun episode? I think it's a fun episode. You kind of see that, and seeing droids race. I mean, that's kind of fun. That's kind of cool, and something you've never really seen before.
Yeah.
But like that one droid, I did not like. What was it? Deo? What was that his name?
Teo,
Teo, yeah.
the next
Didn't
Jar
like
Jar.
didn't like Teo too much, and that made it even worse. And you're just like, oh great. And I never like cheered for a droid to be destroyed like that. And I was like, thank God. So that's so but you almost saw it was very predictable. Everything was predictable. When they said don't go down the left tunnel, like, well, they're gonna go down the left tunnel, and you know, you know, oh, Tech's learning about all this stuff. It's probably gonna be Tech be riding the thing, So it's just it didn't do great for me apparently for either of us, and so Disney Plus it is.
D plus, 2 D pluses for Disney Plus. Can I tell you what my favorite part of the episode was?
Yeah, let's talk about some good things. Yeah.
I well, it's kind of a sarcastic favorite part of the episode, but I thought it was hilarious how Teo gets destroyed, they fix him, and then he just gets destroyed again.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that's one way. Like they could have just kept
Right.
him destroyed, and Tech is like, I guess I'll have to race. But no,
Right.
they really wanted to like rub some dirt in that wound and just be like, oh, he's alive, and now
Right.
he's
Yeah.
gone again.
Yeah. Right. So
Anyways,
yeah,
that was I thought that I actually did laugh at that part.
that was actually pretty good. Yes.
Yeah.
I laughed at it the second time because I was asleep by then on the first.
True. So, in summary, not necessarily our favorite episode, probably maybe our least favorite episode of either my least favorite episode of either season of Bad Batch, but hopefully that's not indicative of the rest of season 2. And I hope we get Crosshair or at least Hunter or Echo in next week's episode. But looking forward to that, as well as everything else Star Wars. Like I said, we've got about 6 weeks now until the release of Mandalorian season 3. about 8 weeks until we haven't talked about this in a week or two. About 8 weeks now until the release of Jedi Survivor. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
March 17th, the release date for that. So maybe we'll put some sort of like question up on the over on the YouTube channel community tab for something Jedi Survivor related. We might try to do like a live stream or we'll do something with the game for the Hoth Hangout YouTube channel is what we're thinking. So be on the lookout for that as well. Ahsoka coming later this year. I think the Acolyte officially finishes filming.
Okay.
I think it's maybe March or April, I want to say. So probably not going to get that in 2023, but that's another show I'm personally
Yeah.
really excited about.
They released some of the cast of that as well, right?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. We have to. I mean, maybe we could break that down on the next episode. But all that to say, lots of fun Star Wars stuff coming. Most what's the word I'm looking for? I was gonna say nextly, but that's not a word. Nextly, most near to date today. Mandalorian season 3 after the rest of the season 2 of Bad Batch. We'll be here to cover it all. Joey, any last thoughts regarding Bad Batch or anything more largely Star Wars related otherwise?
Now this is riot racing. They missed the opportunity. I'm just saying.
Huge missed opportunity.
Would have been a C-.
Hey, me too. I would have upped my grade as well. Again, you can subscribe to the Hoth Hangout YouTube channel on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcast. Check us out over on YouTube as well and subscribe there. And once again, if you haven't checked out our reaction to the Season 3 trailer of The Mandalorian, that is up and available over on the Hoth Hangout YouTube channel. And until we see y'all next time, thanks so much again for listening. As always, we appreciate you so very much. And may the Force be with you.